Hello everyone，大家好，谢谢你们来看我们的 YouTube channel. Thank you for coming and watching our YouTube channel. So, in this video, I'm going to explain basics of Mandarin language and what I'm going to cover in level 1 course, which I call as Basic Conversational Mandarin level 1. Okay, so you can also call it as HSK level 1. You can also call it as a survival Chinese. So it's basic course, like as a beginner, when you start learning Mandarin language, so this is where you start. Okay, so in different places or in different institutes, they can say it as HSK level 1 or basic level 1 or survival Chinese, as I mentioned. So I call it as a basic conversational Mandarin level 1. Okay, now let's get started. So as you see, I have written here Mandarin Chinese. Okay, so Mandarin Chinese. So why Mandarin Chinese? Usually what happens when we speak very generally, we say Chinese language. And when I say Chinese language, it actually includes many languages which are spoken in China. But what we are going to learn, we are going to learn Mandarin Chinese. So why Mandarin Chinese? Because it's the most common Chinese language. It's an official language of mainland China, Taiwan, and also one of the official languages of Singapore. Okay, this Mandarin Chinese, it's also called as an important tomorrow's language. It has also been referred as global language or future language. And nowadays, because of increased academic interest and trade which is happening between China and rest of the world, the demand for this language has increased. Okay, now as I was talking about the basic conversational level or basic Mandarin level, so in basic level we focus only on the spoken part. Okay, so there is no reading and writing part, but it's only spoken part. The reason being, the spoken part of Mandarin language is different from reading and writing part. Okay, and as a beginner, if you start learning spoken part as well as reading and writing part, so it's like learning two languages together, so which makes it bit difficult for a beginner to learn this language. So that's the reason in level 1 we focus only on the spoken part. Now let's understand, when I'm saying the spoken part is different from reading and writing part, so how it is different from reading and writing part. So I just took a very simple example with a very simple word hello. So this word hello, this is how we say it in Mandarin. So ni hao, okay, ni hao, and this is how we write it in Mandarin. Okay, now these are called as Chinese characters. Okay, so this is the character for ni and this is the character for how. Okay, but here what I am doing, I am actually using English alphabets to pronounce Chinese characters. Okay, now this system where I am using English alphabets to pronounce Chinese character, we call this system as Pinyin. In level 1 we are going to focus on Pinyin. Okay, not on these Chinese characters. Okay, again this is a standardized system, but before we get into Pinyin, I want to give you a brief introduction about these Chinese characters or how these Chinese characters have evolved. Okay, and another thing about Pinyin is it serves as a bridge for non-natives to understand this language. So suppose if I show you word hello and then I directly show you these two characters, you may not be able to understand, right? What are these or how do you pronounce it? So that's why this Pinyin also serve as a bridge for non-natives to learn this language. Okay, now before we get into pinyin, let's go and understand the a brief history about these Chinese characters. Yeah. So, first thing, unlike other languages where we start with alphabets, Mandarin language does not have alphabets. Okay, what we have Chinese characters. Okay, and these Chinese characters we call them as hanzi, right? So there is a character for each and every word. Okay, if I have to say water, there is a character for water. If I have to say car, there is a character for car. If I have to say sky, there is a character for sky. Okay, now how these characters have come into picture? So early forms of Chinese characters, like when they started writing in Chinese, or when they started communicating through writing, they started drawing a picture of an object. Okay, so that's the reason this Chinese language, we also called it as a pictorial language. And the history of these characters is almost 2000 years back. And some of the Chinese characters are also concept based. Okay, so there are also concept based characters, and there are picture based characters. So to make you understand this particular part, that how the from picture the characters have been evolved, I'll just show you this particular slide. Now if you look at this slide, so this is the picture of fire, and this is how they started writing fire. Okay, and now this is the character for fire. So if I have to write fire, this is how I'm going to write it. Similarly, you can see for tree also. Okay, now if you look at these characters, you may not find any resemblance or much similarity between the picture and this character, because over a number of years it has been evolved, and definitely it is not possible to draw each and every picture. So that's why it has been evolved, and now we learn these as a characters for these particular objects or these particular things. Okay, so now, as I told, Chinese, we don't have alphabets, right? So see, if I take an example of English, so we have 26 alphabets. So I learn alphabets, and I combine alphabets to form words, and then I use words to form sentences. But in this language, we don't have alphabets, but we have a character for each and every word. Okay, now can you make a guess how many characters we can have? Maybe any wild guess you can make. Okay, so whatever your guess is, okay, let's see if it's you are close to uh, correct numbers or not. Okay, so in Chinese language, there are around 20,000 plus characters. Okay, um, but again, we don't have to learn these 20,000 characters. But if someone is familiar with 6,000 plus characters, so those are the characters which are used in everyday life. Okay, again, to master this 6,000 plus characters, it really needs a lot of time and effort to understand, to learn, to memorize, to use these characters. And when I say 6,000 plus characters, so I am talking about all 6 levels. As I told, this is like level 1, and in Mandarin language we have total of 6 levels. And so when I say 6,000 plus characters, so it includes all levels of Mandarin language. Okay, if you can master this 6,000 plus characters, so then you become fluent in Mandarin language. Okay, so next let's go to category of Chinese characters. So these Chinese characters actually fall into 2 categories: simplified and traditional. Okay, so as the name suggests, simplified are uh, simple characters, and traditionals are bit complicated, right? Now what defines the simplified and traditional is, actually when we write Chinese characters now, so each character has a number of strokes involved in it. Okay, it has a number of strokes involved in it. And if I have to show that, okay, like suppose if I taking this the character for 1,000. Okay, so it has 3 strokes. So what are those 3 strokes? 1, then you have 2, and then 3. Okay, So it's basically, okay, it may not look exactly like this, but it has total of 3 strokes. So in simplified characters we have lesser number of strokes, and in traditional we have more number of strokes. But having said that, it does not mean that all the characters fall into simplified and traditional. Okay, so there are around 1500 plus character which falls into two categories, that is they have a simplified form as well as a traditional form. Okay, but not all Chinese characters. Like let's say, if I say an example of 1000, so 1000 does not have two forms, it does not have simplified and traditional, it has only this form, so I remember 1000 only as this. But if I look at the character for horse, which is it's a traditional character. Okay, and it has a simplified character as well. Okay, but in China nowadays they don't learn traditional characters, they are learning simplified characters. And if you go to China, there like whatever the hoardings or signboards you will see, it will be in simplified Chinese characters, not in traditional. So traditional characters still in Taiwan they still use traditional Chinese characters. Okay, now just to again further understand this character, if you look at these two characters, so these are characters for Guo, which means country. Okay, and I'm sure you can make out which one is simplified and which one is traditional, right? I'm sure you can definitely make out which one is traditional and which one is simplified here, right? So as you would have guessed right, the left side is the traditional one and the right side is the simplified one. Fine. Next is what happens. A single character, it may have some meaning, or it may represent some object, and you can combine the characters to form new words or new meanings. Okay, so that is how you form new words with the known characters. Okay, now let's understand this how. The word for hand, okay, so the word for hand is shao. Okay, and the word for any kind of machine, the one general word for machine, any kind of machine, is ji. Okay, now can you guess what could shao ji means? Yeah, so shao ji, if you go by just words, it literally means hand machine, right? And this is the word for mobile. Okay, now what happened, the interesting thing about China as a country or Chinese language, they don't accept any foreign word. Okay, everything has to be translated into Chinese language. Now with so many new terms or new words or new things are coming, you cannot always have a new Chinese characters or new concepts to form Chinese characters. So what they do, they use the words which are already available and to form a new words. Okay, so another interesting thing, not even these things, even the proper noun, like name of a people, name of a person also gets translated into Chinese language. If you are if your company has an English name, right, definitely if you're outside China you will have English name, but if you have to register the company in China, you have to have an Chinese name for your company as well. Okay, so that is how they form new words with the existing characters. Similarly, the word for aeroplane is fei ji, where fei means to fly, so it's basically means flying machine, right? So that was the one way of forming new words with existing characters. This is another way where you can see this is the character for tree, and when you combine two tree characters together, it's a word for or character for woods, and when you combine three tree characters together, it becomes forest. Okay, so that's another way of forming new words with the existing characters or existing words. This is again, as I was telling you, there are concept based characters as well. So this is a concept based character, one of the concept based characters. This is a character for boat, and if you see, it consists of three parts. The first part means vessel, the second part means eight, and the third part means people. So it's basically a vessel in which eight people can sit, or vessel which can hold eight people. So maybe in ancient China, whatever the boats they have, eight people can sit in that, and that's how they come up with this particular character for boat. So till now, what we saw, that was all about Chinese characters. Okay, now we'll come to pinyin. So as I mentioned before, pinyin is a use of English alphabets to pronounce Chinese characters. So basically, we are learning speaking part of Mandarin language. Okay, it is again a standardized system which was developed in 1950s, and pinyin is again Mandarin word which means spelling out sounds. Okay, and in level 1 we are going to focus on pinyin. Now till now, whatever I have told you about Mandarin language, so what do you think? Do you think it's hard? Do you think it's easy, or do you think it's interesting? Yeah, so maybe some of you may think it's hard, some of you may think it's interesting, and some of you may think it's easy. Okay, so now let's find out what it is. So I would say it's little difficult when it comes to reading and writing part. Okay, because most of the Chinese characters you have to memorize. Okay, and one stroke here and there, one small stroke here and there completely changes the meaning of the word. And some of the characters are very similar characters, and that becomes very confusing sometimes to remember those characters correctly. So when it comes to reading and writing, it is bit difficult, but when it comes to spoken part, it is comparatively easier than other languages. Okay, so there are a few points which make this language easier than other languages. Now let's understand what are those points. So the first one is there is no subject verb agreement. So when I say there is no subject verb agreement, so it's like in English when I'm saying sentences, I'll say he is, I am, you are. So every time I'm changing the subject, I have to change the verb, right? So he is, I am, you are. But in Mandarin language, we have a single verb which goes with all subjects. The second one is there is very less use of plurals. Okay, so again, if I have to say, in English, like 10 apples, I cannot say 10 apple, which makes it wrong. But in Mandarin language, if I mention the number, it's understood it's plural. We don't have to use the plural in that. Okay. But again, having said that, it does not mean that we don't have plurals in Mandarin language. We do have, but comparatively, the use is less. Then you cannot go wrong in terms of tenses, like as we know that we have this past tense, present tense, and future tense in all the languages. So in Mandarin language also we do have all tenses, but here when you are forming simple sentences, when you are forming as a beginner, when you form very day-to-day use of sentences and all, you really don't need to worry about tense. Okay, again, to make you understand, in English, if I have to say sentences like yesterday I went to market, today I go to market, and tomorrow I will go to market. So every time I'm changing the time, I have to change my tense structure accordingly. But in Mandarin language, that's not the case. So here what happens, my sentences would be yesterday I go to market, today I go to market, tomorrow I go to market. So the moment you mention time, it's understood it's past, present, or future, and that is grammatically correct sentence. It's not a wrong sentence. Okay. The next one is it has very simple numbering system. So once you know number from 0 to 10, you can easily say number till 999. Once you know numbers, you can easily say days of the week, months in a year, the date and the time. So all are related to number. And last point is it has very simple preposition. Like suppose in English we have in, on and at, so there are three different words which we use, but in Mandarin language again we have a single word for in, on and at. So these are few points which make it comparatively easier than other languages to learn. Now, next important part of spoken part of Mandarin is it's a tonal language. So we have total of 4 tones. So the first is a high and flat with no change in pitch. The second one is a rising tone. The third one is a falling and rising tone, and the fourth one is a falling tone. If I have to give you an example, if I take very simple word ma, and if I say it with the first tone ma, it means mother. And if I say ma, if I say it with the third tone ma, it means horse. Okay, so based on how you pronounce the word, with which tone you pronounce, the meaning of the word changes. Okay, so this is very important part of spoken Mandarin. Next, as I told that in level 1 we are going to focus on pinyin. So this pinyin word consists of 3 parts. Okay, initials, finals and tones. So initials are basically a consonant of English language or English alphabets, so that's why 21. Finals are vowels, and in English language we have 5 vowels. I have written here 6 because there is one special finals in pinyin system. And then tones, I just now show you 4 tones, but here I have written 5 because some of the words don't have any tone mark on it and we call it as a neutral tone. So once we start learning, we start with these 3 parts. Okay, so we focus first on initials. We learn the pronunciation of initials, finals and combination, their pronunciation and tones. Okay, so all the pinyin words which we are going to learn will consist of these 3 parts. Again, just to make you understand, if I take very simple word how, so in how, H is the initial, A and O is final. So final could be a single vowel or it could be a combination of vowels or combination of vowels and consonant as well. And the mark on A, as you see, it is a tone. So all the words which we are going to learn will consist of these 3 parts. And once we start the learning, then we have to go through all these initials one by one to understand their pronunciation. Some of the initials have same pronunciation as English, but some of the initials have a different pronunciation. So I'm just quickly just going through that, all the initials, right? And then we have finals, as I mentioned, it's like vowels, and then there's a special final. So this will be done once we start the course. And so these are the tones, as you can see, all 4 words with the 4 different tones, right? And all the 4 words will have different meaning. Okay, so as you can see, these are the 4 words with the 4 different tones, and all the 4 different words will have completely different meaning. And this is again for your understanding. If you look at the word, so for us who read English, for us it may seem very similar. Ma is ma, mama, but with the tone, why the word is changing, because if you look at the characters, these are the completely different characters, so that's why completely different word. Then there is something called as a pinyin chart, which again once we start the course, then we have a pinyin chart where we understand the pronunciation. We practice using pinyin chart our pronunciation and different tone marks and finals and initials and all those things. So this is level 1. So these are the different topics which will be covered. and in each chapter, so there will be vocabulary, there will be dialogues, there will be grammar exercises and all. So different topics we choose, and related to that we'll have a vocabulary and grammar and exercises. Okay, so total we have 10 chapters. Okay, so as if you can see from the topics, there are a lot of things which will be covered in level 1 itself. And apart from learning Mandarin language, yes, you will also be introduced to Chinese culture, business etiquettes, and do's and don'ts when you are dealing with Chinese people or when you are in China. Okay, yeah. So I think that's all about a very brief introduction about this basic conversational Mandarin level 1. And I hope it's clear what all it contains and how is our course is designed. Maybe in one of the video I'll also share the one chapter where you can see how the each chapter is designed, or each chapter is structured. Okay, yeah, so I'll stop here, and thank you so much for watching this video. 谢谢你们来看我们的 YouTube channel, and I really hope to see you soon in my next video. Thank you.